Hey, it's Marilyn Devonish here from transformationstm.com, and I've had some questions in about the soul plan. Now, I have got a very extensive blog. I did also a blog where I did a breakdown of Whitney Houston's soul plan. I did it posthumously a few years after she had passed away. I've also done a radio interview. I definitely have included that in the link. And I know it's sometimes easier to have somebody talk you through it and just bring it to life in a different way. So I'm going to be answering the question in terms of what can your soul plan tell you, the kinds of things it can highlight, and also how it can help you in advance of the global soul plan video webinar that I'm running next week. So for those of you who have already booked, or if you're planning to book, this will give you a bit of an insight into what to expect. So I have got my soul plan here. So you get a PDF of your soul plan once you've booked. And I will be then going through all of the PDFs and compiling like a summary of all of the different aspects for people who have booked. So I first did the 50 soul plans for £50 event for my 50th birthday. I just thought it would be fun to do it because it is such an enlightening way to understand yourself more deeply. And I know for me, I had the experience that my clients have. It was literally like looking at my life on 5 sheets of paper. And so I thought it'd be a really nice gift to do that for other people as well. So it was a great success. Did that 2 years ago, and I'm going to do a similar version now as we come out of lockdown, because I know many people have had the rug pulled from underneath them. For some, in terms of their businesses, their work, all of that is changing, and this is the perfect time for doing something like a soul plan, because it can give you a sense of focus, clarity, direction. And one I did last year, she was a similar age to me, and her words were, "Thank you so much for explaining my whole life." That's how profound it can be. So in terms of when I ran it last time round, this was feedback from someone who did the video webinar version, because it's a group call. So rather than doing 50 individual readings, I did it en masse, because there's a lot of overlap, particularly when people are from a similar background, similar kind of industry. It's amazing how it dovetails. And I can always tell when somebody isn't from the spiritual world and the world that I'm always in, because I see other things on their soul plan. I'm like, oh, hold on a minute. So very interesting. So someone who had taken part when I did the global webinar a few years ago said, "Thank you for an amazing call. It's unbelievable how accurate it is about me." And I had that again where somebody had booked, the first person who booked this year, I did a very quick, like 5-minute write-up on Facebook, just kind of posing a few questions and sharing a bit of information from their soul plan. And they immediately emailed me and said, "Oh my God, I just read that and I wondered if you're talking about me," because I went to them and said, "Hey, check out my page if you want to have a quick sneak peek." And she's like, "Oh my God, that is totally spot on." So that's the reaction that you always get with the soul plan. Now, in terms of the soul plan, what I'm going to do when we do the call, let me see if I can find one to put it up here. Right. Oh, actually, yeah. So this is from the person who I had just did a very quick write-up. What had come up for them was a lot of the 4/4 energy, which is potentially also about the ups and downs of fortune. And so I just had written a little summary and just kind of posed some questions about what I imagine might be going on. They came back and they gave me permission to share, and they said, "Wow." So I said, "I'm preparing the first batch of soul plans, and if the person who has challenges and big ups and downs with money feels as though they are not fully in their own power and able to claim it," and they came back and says, "Yes, absolutely, that's definitely where I am, and that's definitely what I'm going through." So very, very interesting. So what we're going to do on the webinar, I'm going to explain to you the upward and downward triangle. You're all going to have a different set of numbers. So looking at mine, I've got worldly challenges, which is a 10-1, spiritual challenges, the 3-3, worldly talents are 5-5, spiritual talents 5-5, worldly goals and spiritual goals are both the 6-6 for me. And I've got the 12-3 as my soul destiny. So you're going to have something slightly different. And then what we are going to do is I'm going to then, let's just say 5 of you on the call have the 10-1. I only need to explain it once. And then what I'll do is a further breakdown, because depending on where it sits on your soul plan, it has a slightly different meaning to the general meaning. But what I'm going to do very quickly is take you through some of the general meanings in terms of what you're going to get on your PDF. And then you'll be able to see, as I go through it, you will be able to see how it relates to live. Hold on. I'm not gonna sorry, I'm not going to read it on my screen, but I just saw a question come up, so I'm just going to grab my iPad. Let me, oh, I know, if I open Facebook, though, it might start talking. Let me just see. Let me see, and I'll see if I can read it for your thing from here. All right, so I'll just have a look at Messenger on here in a bit. So I have seen it, rather than fiddling about on the screen that I'm on. Cool. Right, so 10.1, I had the 10.1 in my worldly challenges. So what it says potential attributes and possible challenges. So you have that for all of the aspects that you have on your PDF for those who've already booked and have your report. So possible challenges for me: denial of spirituality, severely critical, self-loathing, perfectionist, feel alienated, insecure, and must work to establish self in the spiritual. Now, for people who know me now, in terms of Huna, access consciousness, NLP, timeline therapy, hypnosis, EFT, DNA theta healing, emo trance, access consciousness, access bars, future life progression, Reiki, you know, you'll kind of go, well, of course you're not in denial of spirituality. And I say, okay, that was then, this is now. The potential attributes when you overcome the challenges include yin yang balance, male and female balance, excellent healers, inventive, power, many spiritual abilities, vocal expression, channel, and possible service incarnation. So when I read you the attributes, for people who know me and follow what I do, you go, oh my gosh, Marilyn, that's totally you. And I say, yes, and you're sort of missing the point. The point is, that was me, that's me now. The bottom, the challenges bit, was me right up until the age of 32. And one of the things that gave me goosebumps when I first did the Soul Plan practitioner training back in November 2013, where when they talk about the triangle, the downward triangle is approximately age 0 to 30/35. The spiritual is, 30 to 35 onwards. And so it was kind of interesting that my big change and transformation basically sat in the middle of the 30 to 35, and I was 32 when I started on this journey. So, when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, right up until the age of 32, I was totally in denial of spirituality. I was studying to be a chartered accountant with the ACCA. You couldn't get any further away than that. Severely critical and self-loathing. I contemplated committing suicide at age 32. You do not do that when you love yourself. Feeling alienated and insecure, all of that feeds into what was going on around then. And talk about must work to establish self in the spiritual. Oh my goodness, did I go through the ringer or what? Which I've just given you a little bit of an insight into. And so it wasn't, I was reading this a couple of weeks ago, and the male-female balance, the yin and the yang, and it suddenly dawned on me that for the first 9 years that I was in practice, I was a relationship coach. I would say a good 80% of my clients were men. So it wasn't until I was reading it a little while ago, a few months ago, and I was like, oh gosh, the male-female balance, the yin yang, how weird that a female relationship coach would primarily be working with men. So the whole thing about the balance comes into play right there for those first 9 years. So I have it in the worldly challenge. So it's very much about having difficulty fitting into the kind of physical world. And one of the things I always said, once I'd sorted everything out in December 2000 and got into personal development, the way I described it was, I felt as though I was living life on the outside looking in. So that whole thing, when I read it, I was like, oh my goodness, yes, difficulty adjusting to the physical, difficulty in fitting in, and being big blocks to their spiritual progress. I mean, I went through so much. I'm surprised I made it to age 32. And this one, it talks about it being when it says high, it doesn't mean better than, it just means a different kind of vibration, but a high soul carrying out an incarnation of pure service. And one of the things I love to do is creating and sharing and all that sort of stuff. So it's almost as though when you get into the energy of your soul plan, it just drives you. It just is. And so one of the things that often happens, particularly when people have been on a spiritual journey, personal development, exploring the self, we go through their soul plan report and they will go, oh my goodness, I've just taken that up, or I've just, because sometimes it's very specific. It might say, I don't know, take up, free dance noting, or, psychic art. And they'll say, oh my goodness, I just signed up for a psychic art class, or I just started doing a dance class. And they just sometimes don't even know why. They just felt compelled to. And then you go through your soul plan and it's all there. So it's as though the energy of the soul plan will, a bit like if you've concreted somewhere over, but there are a few cracks, the green shoots are always going to come through. And you can ignore them or pull them up and carry on with what you're doing. But it's always fascinating when you go through people's soul plans and they see the things that they've ended up doing, or that they've more recently been compelled to do. So that's, and also they all have individual limiting beliefs. So for example, some of the limiting beliefs that sit with the 10-1 as the worldly challenge: I am separate, I am alien, I am abandoned by the divine, I have to be perfect, I hate myself, I am flawed, others are flawed. And that is totally how I felt right up until the age of 32. So again, when I looked at this in more detail, that was interesting. So worldly talents, for me, it's the 5-5 energy. And the 5-5 energy, they describe this one like the ethereal fetus that's coming into form, that's coming into the physical world, and it's changing and it's molding. And this one is said to have almost like an angelic type quality. I'm laughing now with all the tarot stuff. And it relates to the energy of creation. And it's about something coming into being from spiritual roots. So when you look at all of the things I do now, and nowadays, because I'm qualified in about 20 different modalities, I now have to, like when I'm doing stuff for journalists and newspapers and magazines and the press and the media, it's very, to send them a list of 20 things that you do, it's like, oh, it's too much. So I just now normally try and condense that down into either multidisciplinary therapist or the neuro success coach. And if of course I'm talking about flexible working and remote working, then it's the flexible and remote working implementation consultant. But the spiritual side of things is very strong now in kind of what I'm doing. So in terms of this one, it's also about you, the way that you express yourself is about thought, it's about speech, it's about action. And any of you who know me, I've even got the hashtag for it, my other brain. So there's always some thought process going on. I love speaking, which is always why I'm doing Facebook Lives, etc., etc. And then, of course, putting things into action. Let's not hang about, let's get it done. However, just to put that into context for people that don't know me particularly well, I was terrified of public speaking right up until the age of 32. So it's not like it was my natural state of being at all. So 5-5, just to give you a sense of this one, the potential attributes of the 5-5: pioneering, intuitive, spiritually open, adventurous, assertive, articulate, visionary, and creative. And again, people go, oh my gosh, yeah, that sounds just like you. It's like, yes, but let's look at the challenges, shall we? Challenges: highly sensitive, sometimes too much so, ethereal, ungrounded, manipulative or misuse of intuition, difficulty fitting in, victim of abuse, and right foot issues. And that's about stepping forwards. Now, even if we just kind of forget all of that, the victim of abuse, for those of you, it depends which context you've seen me in, but I was sexually abused from the age of 7 to 17. So that just jumped out at me straight away. And of course, it's not going to resonate with everyone. And the right foot issues, it's like, oh my gosh, one of the problems I had growing up is the bone in my right foot on the inside used to swell. And actually, to this day, I don't even know the reason for that. And I was probably 23, 24, maybe 25, something like that, ripped the tendons to shreds. I mean, my ankle went over completely sideways on my right foot, and I did 9 months on a wobble board just to get to the point where I could walk on it without having that sort of lean. And the wobble board, I believe, hold on, because I was using it when I first took up ballet. Here we go. This is the wobble board, if you've never seen one before. So it's got this thing on the bottom, and then you balance on it, and it's about getting your stability back. So it did come in handy later on for improving my balance for ballet, but I had to use that thing for almost a year with regards to my right foot. And in terms of the issues of stepping forwards, that could not have been more seriously, couldn't be more accurate in terms of when I did a business studies degree, and I did a postgraduate marketing diploma with the Chartered Institute of Marketing. By the time I graduated, I was probably the most qualified person, not just in my year, probably in the whole university, because I'd been working since I was 15 years old. I worked for what was then the Harrods and Barkers of Kensington group. They were all one group, they were all part of the Harrods group at that time. And I wasn't just stacking shelves, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. I worked in the accounts department. I worked in the export department. I worked on switchboard. I worked in the cash office. Several times I was offered the job as accounts manager, office manager, cash office manager, but I just thought I wanted to do something else other than work in a store. Even though Barkers of Kensington was absolutely beautiful, it was the sister store to Kensington, to Harrods. And so I had all of that work experience. I also was a qualified secretary, so typing, shorthand, what was called word processing back then, minutes of meetings, business notes, everything. Even with all of those qualifications, before I did my degree, I still did not have the confidence to go for a graduate job. So I didn't apply for any of the jobs on the milk round. I was too afraid, even though I was qualified up to the eyeballs. And when I graduated, I got a job as a secretary. Nothing wrong with being a secretary. Some of the best skills I've ever learned. I use those skills to this day. However, the reason I was a secretary is because I was too afraid to go for a proper graduate job. So when it talks about the stepping forwards, stepping out, and not kind of, embracing the whole thing about being articulate and creative, etc., again, that was me down to a complete T. So there's that one. Let's see. And we've got the worldly goals. So the worldly goals, and I've got this twice, the 6-6 energy, and this is where a lot of the creativity comes into it. So 6-6 energy is about thought and creativity. So possible challenges with this one: stubborn. I'm a Taurian. Apparently, when I was growing up, my mom said I got hard ears. So stubborn, rigidity, power obsession, isolation, frustration, anger, difficulty focusing, scattered, too many ideas and directions, overstressed, risking burnout, kidney issues. Now, what's very interesting with this is in my late 20s stroke early 30s, I discovered that because I was so ill, there's a lot going on with the thyroid and all that had happened with that. And then with the stress of work, and then with the stress of my partner having an affair and yada, 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 I had adrenal fatigue, and that impacts your kidneys, etc. So all of this, again, when I looked at it, I was like, oh my goodness, that was my life. That was just totally my life. The potential attributes for this one: really creative, artistic, both in life or in business, visionary, adaptable, Zen-like concentration, and adaptable with people. And I went from someone who absolutely hated being around people, because I'm still to this day, I'm an off the chart introvert, and that doesn't need to change. It's just that I can access other facets of myself. So to go from that to now being my life, my work is about people. My life, my work is about articulating ideas. My life and my work is about creating and putting things together in a way that people can access them. So again, really, really fascinating. In terms of this, limiting beliefs, for example, with this one, my creativity is blocked. Others are blocking me. There is too much to do. I am lacking in power. I must find the answers. There is no way out. I'm stuck. And if any of you have ever had suicidal tendencies, that feeling of there's no way out, I can't even conceive of what else to do, was all consuming in my early 30s. Hence, deciding at one point that was it, I was going to end it all. So again, when I was looking at this, I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm going to read you an extract of this one, given that I've got it twice, and any of you who have the 6-6 energy, you may recognize this as well. So the drive of this one is to become really creative. The soul pushes you, so there is no choice. And when it's in the goals position, there is little choice than to follow a desire to expand your ideas and creative ventures. Your soul is pushing you to become totally creative and expansive. When used in business, a major strength comes through the ability to focus and see projects through. When you've got the energy harnessed, if it's all over the place, then it's the challenges bit. The confidence in the ability to deliver is very valuable in business, and when sensed or seen in action, others want to work with it, so it's very inspiring energy. This one is the whole thing about there's no 100% guarantee that what you're creating is going to be a success. That's one of the things that you need to overcome, the blockage to that, and maybe the fears of that. And it's that whole thing about, if it appears in your spiritual part of your chart, it may be that you would focus on something like running a holistic or service orientated business or project. And if you're more artistically inclined, oh my goodness, then you'd be working with exploring light as a theme, which will bring much joy and revelation. The reason I said, oh my goodness, is quite recently, I've had several conversations where people say, Marilyn, you're such a lighthouse in terms of being there and solid and being a light and a beacon for others. So years ago, when I read that wouldn't have resonated with me at all. And one of the things that my clients have found, actually, let me put it up here, I'll show you. One of the things that my clients have found is that the soul plan is an investment that keeps on giving, because you can go back to your soul plan. I know I went back to my soul plan 5 years after I'd had it done. I looked at it and was like, oh my goodness, something that was like, oh, that's interesting, whatever, was just like, vroom, in your face. So now the piece about the light really resonates with me. And what that means is, if I were at a career crossroads, for example, thinking, oh my gosh, what should I do? I feel as though I've done everything that I wanted to do, for example. Now you'll go, well, actually, you haven't yet explored this aspect. So one of the things that a client who had their soul plan done, and I did a soul plan reading for her. Let me just have a look at that as well, just to see if yeah, cool. And I did a soul plan reading for her. She said, so this is Kate. Some of you might know Kate Thomas, who does the wonderful angelic jewelry. She says, I've just revisited my soul plan 7 months after the initial reading. Somehow it seems to resonate even more now, exclamation mark. If you are on the fence about whether to take up this amazing offer, I can highly recommend it. So she was talking about when I was doing the 50 soul plans for £50, having done an individual one-to-one soul plan reading prior. So it's one of those things that you can go back and look at your soul plan months later, years later, I'm sure even decades later, and it will still speak to you, and it will still give you a sense of clarity, direction, etc. So what else we have? Spiritual challenge for me, the 3-3. Poverty consciousness, self-worth issues, hiding your power and expression, egotistical, doesn't listen, ears, hearing may be effective, the thing about aggressive expression or tendency, and so that's all in the challenge position. In the potential attributes, you've got expressive, a teaching vibration, creative, intuitive, and a communicator. And the premise is that the worldly is from age 0 to 30/35. The spiritual then starts coming into play, and it doesn't mean you're suddenly going to be omming on the top of a mountain and becoming more spiritual. It just means that other things start to unfold. I often think about this as like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once you've met those baseline needs, that's where you move more into self-actualization. So I see these as being quite similar. So if I hadn't yet got, because what often happens with my clients is they might have no clue, or they're gently in denial, or just can't put all the pieces together. So if by the time I'd hit my mid-30s, I hadn't yet got the hint about being a teacher of some sort, and about being a communicator, and about using my intuition, it shows up again in the soul plan, but this time it's much more clear, it's much more dynamic. So, you know, the whole thing, there was going to be something about expressing myself. And this one is about you invite others in with this 3-3 energy. It's almost like a labyrinth, this one. It's the little concentric circles within each other. and you're inviting other people in to learn from what they call the labyrinth of knowledge. One of my favorite things in my membership group, aside from Tarot Tuesday, is Wisdom Wednesday, and that's an essay curated piece where I'm going back through the ages. We've gone back to Socrates in terms of I then curate an essay piece, and I look at how we can bring ancient wisdom to life and use it practically now, today, even if that wisdom is hundreds or even thousands of years old. So now when I look at this in terms of the whole thing about the labyrinth of wisdom and knowledge and bringing that depth of knowledge to others, it's totally what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years with the membership group. So again, in my 30s, that wouldn't have resonated. Probably even when I got into personal development, that wouldn't have really resonated, because I wouldn't have felt like I was bringing any deep kind of wisdom. I'm just doing what I'm doing. Now, as time has unfolded, that's coming even more to the fore, and I get a sense I'm just scratching the surface of that. So I think this is one that is going to keep going with regards to the way the soul plan plays out. So, gosh, limiting beliefs for this one include I am worthless, unworthy, I'm undeserving. Again, all of that was totally true. And the whole thing, money is evil. I'm under attack, I'm being watched. Wow. And what it also does, one of the things I really love about the soul plan, it doesn't just tell you all this stuff, it is very specific in then suggesting both things you can do in terms of self-help, they're free, and also therapy. So the therapies it suggests for me in overcoming these challenges was life coaching, sound healing, psychic art therapy, throat chakra blockage clearing, and stage fright hypnotherapy. And I said earlier, I was terrified of public speaking. It was hypnotherapy that sorted that out. It was the coaching that sorted that out. In terms of the throat, the biggest challenge I had health-wise, now, there was a direct cause to that. There was an overzealous doctor who destroyed my thyroid gland, but you can't get away from what happened. The throat was the biggest area for me. And I remember sitting on that NLP training in October 2000 and them talking about, the energy in the body. And this was all sort of new stuff to me. And then they talked about, expression and communication, that when it's blocked, you can often have a problem with your thyroid gland. And I was just like, oh my goodness, because I'd never really heard about this thing called the mind-body connection. I was like, oh, wow, somebody who's afraid of speaking, somebody who can barely even speak to their own family, somebody who's barely got any friends, someone who hates being in social situations. And surprise, surprise, I had major thyroid problems, even though they were directly caused by someone. That doesn't take away from the fact that was the net result. So, really, really interesting. Now, for me, I've got the 9-9 as my spiritual talent. And this is about peacemaking and protection. So this one is almost like this one is like the steely serpent, and it's almost like you're plugged into the universe. There's like an electric force and current that runs through you, and it's the whole thing that I can hear the song, "There's Someone to Watch Over Me," but it's almost like the universe is kind of watching you and got your back. Actually, this might go some way to explaining why synchronicity is such a big part of my life. Anyway, so possible challenges with this one: reluctance to claim power, misuse of power, blockage of power, victim mentality, overly dramatic. They don't trust their own channels, so you'll seek it out, seeking other gurus, giving your power away, asking others, vain, and kidney issues, because this energy is physically demanding. So we've already talked about the kidneys, the adrenals, etc. And I was certainly, on the outside looking in and just thinking everybody else had the answers and had it sussed and had it sorted. The potential attributes for the 9-9: peacemaker, catalyst, stable. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'll tell you about my oh my gosh thought in a minute. Stable, protected, power, channel, healer, organized, clairaudient. The reason I said oh my god, my logo since 2000, very early 2001, has been the water drop. So this is way before I even knew the soul plan existed. The reason I chose this is because I felt as though the work I was here to do in this world was to be a catalyst, where I would do the thing that I do in the center of that with doing what was then the 1-day breakthrough session. So I'm going to work with you for that 6 to 8 hours. Your whole life will change, and those changes will continue to ripple throughout your life, and I will be a catalyst for that. That was my intention when I first started in the year 2000, and that was the logo then I came up with to personify that, to demonstrate that. So with it saying, being a catalyst, it's like, yep, spot on. Haven't really noticed that one before, but it's always been sat there. And as I said, things unfold as you progress, a bit like the archetypal journey in a way. And I know that to be true with the catalyst, because a few years ago, I got an email from a guy who I did a 1-day breakthrough session with, and he'd copied one of his colleagues in. He worked for an training organization, and he said, "Hey, Marilyn, I want to introduce you to da 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 da. She's looking for an executive coach. I've told her how fantastic you are." And he says, "By the way, I've been meaning to get in touch with you, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for the breakthrough session, the changes of which are still rippling throughout my entire life." Those were his words. I was like, I don't think I've spoken to this guy for like 10 years. So I go back and check my database. Sure enough, I had done the breakthrough session, the 1-day breakthrough session 10 years prior. And the changes of that were still rippling throughout his entire life. So this whole thing about the catalyst energy, it took a while for me to physically, tangibly see it, but for some reason that was what I decided 20 years ago. Without knowing anything about my soul plan, I didn't see it until 2013. So really, really fascinating the way it comes into being. Wow. Wow. Limiting beliefs for this one include, I have no power. Other people have the answers. I can't trust myself. I need drama to feel alive. People are out to get me. I hate myself, and I need to cause trouble to get noticed. And I have seen that said about people who are, who attempt to take their own lives. It's kind of interesting, because I'm sure people might have thought the same, although my drivers would have been different, but how it presents to the world, I guess, resonates with some of that. Fascinating. So this one is all about, if you feel your power is blocked, this one is all about, learning how to unblock it. So those are some of the aspects that you get. I've got the 6-6 again as my spiritual goals. So that is just the whole thing about being pushed to be creative. I don't fight with the creativity now. And those of you who follow me will know there's a prolific amount of stuff that comes from this desk and through this PC. And it is just the way it is. And my soul destiny is the 12-3, which is talking about having a great desire to learn, great love to share, mothering people, seeing the beauty in all, romantic, harmonious, and successful. Now, the great love to share and the kind of great desire to learn and then want to share those learnings, that just dovetails perfectly with the photo reading, the accelerated learning, reading at 25,000 words per minute, photo reading a whole book from start to finish in just 5 minutes. And then not only learning those skills for myself, but then becoming a teacher and an instructor so that I can share that with other people. So all of that perfectly resonates. And what potentially stands in the way of accessing those skills, being excessive, having an unbalanced approach, a fear of failure, underachievers, self-guilt, lack of self-worth, need for approval, fanatical, sexual confusion, gallbladder issues, anger, or a physical issue with the liver or the gallbladder. And my goodness, I had all of those things in spades. And so one of the reasons potentially why I was too afraid, even with all of those incredible qualifications, why I was too afraid to go for the milk round, why I was too afraid to go for a graduate job, all of this stuff was unresolved. And so when it's unresolved, what's really frustrating, I think, it would have been probably a million times worse if I could have seen my potential and then observed myself sabotaging it. I wasn't even aware of what I could do and what I might be capable of. So I probably had it slightly easier, but I just always knew there was something inside where, there's more. I kind of, and that's probably why I said no, probably 5 or 6 times to being offered the manager's job at Barkers of Kensington. because that would have been a fantastic, brilliant, wonderful, amazing job. So there was something, but I just had no idea how to explain it, no idea how to articulate it. So my soul purpose summary, let me give you a little taste of that. It says this is often the purpose of this sits in the, so this soul destiny, this is what sits in the center of your soul plan. So it says, this is often the purpose of the soul, aiming to gather as much knowledge as can possibly be attained in one lifetime. No kidding, Sherlock. This may be because your soul is wishing to greatly expand in this life, or otherwise because you are nearing the end of the incarnation cycle. The aim is to conscious awareness with soul truth. There is also a desire to consciously connect with the higher self in such a way that you can allow the great love of your soul to shine through. Now, those of you who follow me will know I absolutely love Huna, Huna, and one of the cornerstones of Huna is about working with the higher self and higher self therapy. So I'm sort of giggling to myself and I'm going, oh yeah. So it is just crazy. It's crazy how, this stuff shows up. It also goes into health things. All of the aspects look at the limiting beliefs. All of the aspects look at potential self-help things that you can do. All of the aspects give you very specific things that you can do in terms of therapy. And, if you take it in that direction, going to health. So, for example, the 12-3 with this position, many of the challenges, you're prone to stress. You can have too little or too much sleep, overworking, overeating, alcohol abuse, may have addictive personality. So more severe cases, drugs, gambling, alcohol can present major physical or mental health problems. They want peace at all costs, yet you cannot control the flow and the changes and events of life. And so as a result, you potentially become overreactive to raucous or chaotic environments. So sometimes you will have people say, oh my God, I just can't be here. The energy of this is too much. And this could be some of the things that are going on. So that gives you just a sense of how the soul plan shows up, what it can tell you, the way that it can highlight your direction. So if you had no idea, for example, that you had the gift of oration, that vocal expression, that teaching, that creativity, that being clairaudient, etc., was even on your path, it's almost like a revealing and an awakening for people. They're like, oh my goodness. And there's, again, like myself, there's often been some inkling of it, some remnant of it. However, people hadn't been able to articulate it. They hadn't been able to put it into words. So it's like when they read their soul plan, it then brings to life in glorious, I was going to say Technicolor is black and white, but it brings it to life. And now people have the words and the language to put to what sometimes they've always known, what they have felt, or what they were inexplicably drawn to, but then they pull away from. In NLP terms, you've got your towards and your away from. If you haven't resolved the challenges, even when you realize that's a push, that's a driver, that's where people will sabotage themselves, or they, like the right foot stepping forwards, etc. They'll go so far. I can now hear Paula Abdul, 1 step forwards, 2 steps back. That's where the sabotage comes in. That's where the messing things up. That's where the letting things slide. That's where you're almost watching everything, like the car crash happening in slow motion. And one of the reasons you don't do anything about it is because all of that challenge energy is all there, churned up and mixed up. So that's a whistle stop of the soul plan, just so you can see what one is like in action. And so what I'm going to be doing on the webinar next week, it's taking place on the 12th, is I'm going to do a summary of, so I'll do what I did last time. I put a spreadsheet together of everyone. So I'm not going to be saying, oh, so-and-so from London has got this. I'm just going to be saying, if you have the 6-6, if you have the 7-7, if you have the 4-4, if you have the 10-1, if you have the da-da-da, and then you'll have your soul and go, oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, that's me. And I've got it in this position. I've got it in that position. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what each of the elements of the soul plans of the collective that are on the webinar has. And then we'll talk about what you can do to resolve those challenges. We're also going to do some Huna and Access Consciousness to clear some of the energy around that. And then we will close with the Soul Plan and the Soul Plan Blueprint Realignment Guided Meditation, which is something that I use when I do the one-to-one Soul Plan. So we're going to do that as a group as well, just to bring everything back into alignment so you can activate the kind of the more positive aspects and highest purpose of your soul plan. So that's it really. If you want any further information about soul plans, if you happen to be watching this after the global video webinar has been done, just go to my main website. It's www.transformationstm.com/soul plan. I will put that up on screen so you can see it. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So it's www.trance, T-R-A-N-C-E, F for Freddy, so F-O-R-M-A-T-I-O-N-S, TM as in trademark. So www.transformationstm.com/soul plan. And that's where you'll find the information. Also, it's a really long link to for the thing that we're doing next week. The easiest way is going to be go to my main website. There's a red button at the top, a circular, a round circle. It's red. It says what's new. Click on that. A panel slides out from the right. Scroll down probably 3 or 4 entries, because this is where I put stuff that's happening, webinars, etc., special offers. So scroll down and there's going to be a link to booking the soul plan. And actually what I might do in a few minutes is I'll maybe go and add it again so it's nearer the top. And that's how you can book to join us. I also yesterday, actually I definitely will, because I've just put up the Eventbrite page yesterday. So you can book via Eventbrite, or if you wanted to pay by credit card or Stripe, there's a link on the Eventbrite page which will take you to my Involve Me page, and then you can choose to pay by card if you didn't want to pay by PayPal. So yeah, that's going to be the easiest way to book. Let me just see. I just spotted something else as I was scrolling, and then I'll look at the questions in a second. There we go. So this is someone else who attended the webinar when I did it a couple of years ago. She said, "Thank you so much, Marilyn. That was fantastic. It was really accurate and just what I needed." And that's one of the reasons why I've decided to do this again. I didn't ever plan to do it again, because trust me, it's a lot of work compiling all of those soul plans and going through them en masse. However, because it's just been so chaotic and so traumatic for many people and so destabilizing, I thought, as they've said in this quote here, this is the perfect time to give people more of a sense of clarity, more of a sense of focus, more of a sense of direction, more of a sense of revealing and enlightenment, and where sometimes you can just breathe a sigh of relief and go, oh my goodness, that explains why I've been feeling what I've been feeling. And you also get some very solid, clear information in terms of what can you actually do about it. So, and actually what I might do for the person who was kind enough to let me share their 4-4, let me just tell you, because you're probably going to watch this, and if you don't, I will message it to you. Let me tell you a couple of you can have another little sneak peek. I'm going to tell you about some of the suggested therapies for the 4-4, should you want to get a head start. Suggested therapies for the 4-4 energy. This is the fertility and abundance. So if you've got ups and downs of fortune, particularly if you've got it in a challenge position. So it's counseling, forgiveness work over betrayal, surrogate neurological bonding, self-esteem hypnosis, intuitive coherence and manifestation work. So those are some of the suggested therapies. In terms of self-help methods, which you can do, don't cost anything at all. Karma yoga. You could, everybody's on Zoom now, everything's online, so I'm sure you can find some karma yoga. So karma yoga, meditation, books on self-esteem, and books also on abundance and manifestation, and exploring innovative learning techniques. Cue photo reading. It also talks about back flower remedies, so Serato, larch, sweet chestnut, water violet, chicory. There's also a healing affirmation, and some of the limiting beliefs. I'm going to read those out as well, just in case any of them resonate with you. And if they do, kind of have those top of mind when we do the webinar next week. So when we do the Huna and Access Consciousness, we can maybe put those into the mix. So limiting beliefs for the 4-4, things like I am unworthy, I cannot reproduce, and that doesn't just mean in terms of children, that can also mean you reproduce in terms of duplicating your business, reproducing money, finances, etc. I am blocked, I am alone, I am abandoned, I am rejected, and people are untrustworthy. So a few things there for you to mull over in advance of the live webinar next week. And of course, because we've got people from different time zones, if you can't make it, there will be a replay recording, which means you can listen at your leisure. And one of the questions I always get, particularly when we do like the energy clearing work, is does it work even if someone isn't there live? I'm just looking to see if I've got that one from Pepper. I'm going to put that, oh, there we go. Thought I had it there. There we go. So this is from one of my lovely clients who's out in Australia. This is when I was testing a process out for my e-newsletter list, because when I've got new products, they normally get first dibs, special prices, etc. And she wasn't able to join live. This one was a teleseminar, so it's a dial-in. We're going to be doing video webinar with the Soul Plan. And so she wasn't there live. She listened to the recording, the audio recording, and she pretty much described word for word what I'd done with the healing, even though she had no idea what I was doing, because all Pippa would have heard is me, that's it. But she described, you know, she says initially my third eye and my heart and throat and center and solar plexus all felt compressed. She'd have no idea that I did a symbol where the literal translation is thunder comes down and strikes the earth and makes the earth shake. And there are times where people feel it as a physical pushback. And bear in mind, I'm in the United Kingdom. She's in Australia listening to a replay of an MP3. She then said it was uncomfortable to say the least. After the first round of Huna, I sensed the image of a red triangle. She would have had no idea that after I'd done that to break the energy up, I then used a red triangle, the symbol for a red triangle, to metaphorically burn away the ember of what we just cleared. She would have had no idea about that either, because I was just doing the and even someone who does Huna has no idea what I just did, what symbol I just did. She then says during and then after the second round, I felt the pain being drawn out of my body by my heart center. She would have had no idea that at that point I was using a technique that I often use actually when I'm doing the soul plan reading, which is the sword finger. So I did a symbol with the Huna to open up the heart space, and then the sword fingers to pull the energy out of there. And that's what she's describing. And then she says slowly I slowly began to feel lighter. My heart center opened up more than previously, and it was like I was glowing from the inside out. What I then did once I cleared the energy, there's a lovely symbol that when you see it, it's like there's a sun at the top, and the intention of that symbol is you place it and then people glow from the inside out. Again, people would have had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And I could go on, you know, it's there on the screen if your device is big enough to read it for yourself. So in answer to the question about does the energy travel even if you can't make it live, yes it does. And also people have asked me about the whole thing about what if you're working in groups. This is for an event that I was speaking at. I've been the MC for the last 3 years, would have been this year had we not been in lockdown as well for the 4th year. Something called the TCCHE, the Conference for Consciousness and Human Evolution. I literally did 5 minutes of Huna, blew people's minds. And so if it's not too small, you can see some of the feedback. I have to lean forward a bit. You can see some of the feedback on the screen. So someone says, thank you so much for everything and the Huna. Somebody else was saying, I attended the 4-day TCCHE event over a couple of weeks ago, and although I found the speakers fascinating, your Huna had the most profound effect on me. Someone else said, I did speak to you at the event, brackets in the ladies, because I couldn't walk 2 steps without people queuing up to say, what did you just do? What was that thing? What is it called? Where is it from? And then telling me these incredible things that had happened to them. There's 550 people at that event. Everybody had a different experience, but just what they needed. And so she was saying, and I told you, and I explained how I felt the energy around me in the sense of calm. But since that time, I'm quite amazed at what has happened, because she then messaged me several weeks after the event, and we're back to that catalytic energy, where the energy of the Huna was still rippling. So yes, it translates even if you're not there live, and yes, it works beautifully with groups, which is one of the reasons why I absolutely love it. So just wanted to answer that as well. Now let me go to what I said I would go to and open up this messenger. Actually a good opportunity to have some water. Okay. How much is it? That's a very good question. Right, when it first launched, it was £60 for people on my e-newsletter list, and then, so that ended in July. So don't even think about that. I believe it's £75. And if you wanted to do a one-to-one soul plan reading, I do those via telephone, by Skype, or my online meeting room. A one-to-one soul plan reading is £130. So we do that individually, and the group reading, and the reason I did it as a group as well, I can do it at a different price because I know some have been challenged by what's been going on with the lockdown, etc. So it's a different price if you're doing it one-to-one. So it's £130 to do a one-to-one reading. At the moment, if you're booking this week, that's the kind of early booking price is £75 if you're wanting to join the global video webinar. So that is that one. Yes, so how is it delivered? If you're asking about the one-to-ones, I've just answered that. If you're asking about the webinar, it's going to be on my, have I got a picture of my webinar platform just so I can give you a little bit? Oh, it's very tiny. Have I got a bigger one? Let me just see if I've got a bigger picture of it here in my stack. If I haven't, no worries, you'll use your imagination. Yeah, Ooh. Yeah, but I'm going to be in my video web, not this platform. This is for broadcasting to social media, but I'm going to be using my video webinar platform. So what it will be, I'll have a bit of information up on the slides. I know it's tiny in terms of what's on the screen, but there'll be a video of me talking. I'll have the slides, so just so I can illustrate some of the points that I'm making as we go through. You're not going to be on camera, so you don't need to worry about your lockdown hair or anything like that. There is a chat room, and there's an open chat, and there's also a private chat, because sometimes people don't want to ask questions in public. So you'll have the option of either chatting with the group, or you will be able to talk to me directly via the written chat. So that's how it works. And there was one more. Hold on. Actually, I'm just going to have a, sometimes people email me, even though I say don't email me, because I close my email down when I'm doing a Facebook Live, just so there's no chatting. Cool, I think we're there. So let me just go back to that final one in Messenger. Where was it? Yeah, okay. So I was saying that the soul plan, you know, you can go back to it years later. How is that? One of the things about the soul plan, it's about your life. So it's about the rest of your life. So I'm guessing that if I live another 50 years, I could look at my soul plan potentially in 50 years' time and still see stuff that resonates, and also still be aware of challenges that I haven't yet worked on, that I haven't yet overcome. And it could be that sometimes the challenges are not even up for you yet. So it's like, yeah, dude, I'm struggling already with that challenge. The rest can just take a back seat. And by the same token, there may be skills and talents and gifts and attributes that you haven't even tapped into yet. I know there's stuff on my soul plan that I haven't even started to scratch the surface of. So potentially 10 years time, 15 years time, 20 years time, 30 years time, 40 years time, aspects of my soul plan could just be coming to the fore, just as none of them really resonated up until the age of 32. That's a continual thing, because the soul plan is about your life. It's not just about this snapshot and moment in time. So, you know, sometimes, let's say if you do a psychometric test, you're in the moment with that, and it's about where are you at, what are you thinking at that time. The soul plan is actually about your entire life. Final one, I just saw another one. 1 second. Right, yes. So with regards to that question about what do you get with regards to the webinar, you will get a PDF report of your soul plan. So in the same way I've got mine here, which shows the soul plan triangle, and then it gives you a summary of the challenges, a summary of the attributes. You'll get a PDF version of that via email, so you're going to have that for the webinar. And that's also a reason why I've got the cutoff date is going to be before the webinar, so there's no point booking on the day of the webinar, because I'm just not going to have time to go through your soul plan and do the analysis. So you'll have a copy of your soul plan. So as I'm doing the video webinar and I'm going through the aspects, when I say 7-7, you can look at your soul plan, the triangle, and go, have I got, it's a bit like bingo, have I got the 7-7? And if you have, listen up. And the beauty of this, one of the things I love about video webinars, I've been doing coaching and training and therapy online since 2005. One of the reasons I've really always liked it, so way before everybody's online now, is because you can go back and re-listen to things, because there's a lot of information to take in. So when I do individual soul plan readings for my clients, I always record them, because I know probably 15-20 minutes in, they're just like mind blown, because there is just so much information. So the beauty is you get the recording, even if you're there live, you probably will want to go back and listen to it again. Right, I think that's all. For those of you who are on on Facebook, if you have any questions, if you have any queries, speak now or forever hold your peace. So I know there's a little bit of a time delay, so I'm just going to have some water. So if you've got any questions, you've got any queries, put them in now. And if not, I will see those of you who are joining me next week for the Global Soul Plan online readings. Really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it. Cool. I think we are good. And of course, if you happen to be watching this as the replay, then you can put your questions into the chat and I will come and answer them. What I'll also do is I'll put a link where you can book to take part. I'll put that in the chat on Facebook, and if you're watching this on YouTube, then I'll put a link in the description of this video. So thank you to everyone who has booked to join me. I'm really looking forward to it, and the cutoff is this weekend basically, so that I have time to sit down, go through the soul plans, put the spreadsheet together and make sure that I cover everyone that is taking part. Fab. Cool. Catch you all later. Bye bye.